It's story time. Chapter 3. What I Saw in the Darkness.
Okay. My name's Ezekiel Martinez. I'm from San Jose, California.
When I was looking for people to share their experiences with me for my show, a friend of mine introduced me to his bandmate Zeke because he was familiar with all of his unbelievable stories.
You know, I've seen a lot of stuff when I was younger. Kind of stuff that I couldn't explain visually.
The first unexplainable sighting Zeke had was when he was a toddler.
And I'd be sitting in the couch in my parents' living room, and I would see shadows. You know, like smoke, I guess you could describe it as. They would just kind of float, almost like clouds, but bigger. And I would see a huge shadow just following me around. But they were mainly coming from the kitchen area. So during the afternoons, my mother would sit me on the couch in front of the window, and I would watch her cook. And whenever she would leave the room, I would see shadows come up from the kitchen area and just come out and towards me. I didn't really understand what they were, so I kind of thought it was normal at that age. You know, I would watch Scooby-Doo in the mornings, and I would think, oh, those are ghosts, you know, but I never thought it would be like shadows, you know, until I started doing a little bit more research on it when I got older.
Zeke never felt threatened by the shadows.
At that time, they were comforting, but it seems like the more I got older, the more I saw that was not so comforting. So this was probably about 10 years ago. I used to get up really early to go to work, and I think I would get up like at 4, and I would hit the road by 4:30. This particular morning, I was running a little bit late to work, so the streets were very empty. So I'm at a stoplight, and out of my peripheral vision, I see a figure walking down the sidewalk on my left side, and he's walking down the sidewalk. He's kind of staggering a little bit. So I think it's more of a drunk left over from maybe sleeping it off in a parking lot or something.
The figure stumbles toward the crosswalk, grabbing onto a pole for support.
So then, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking about, man, what's wrong with this guy? So I turn around and I look at him, and there is a figure there, and he's like still stumbling around.
But the figure is see-through.
Like I could see the outline of his clothes, and he had no head, and that really freaked me out. I thought I was dreaming, or I thought there was something in my coffee, maybe. So I stared at him for about 30 seconds to make sure that this was all real. I was blinking my eyes, I was rubbing my eyes, and the thing noticed that I was looking at it. And as soon as it noticed that I was looking at it, it shifted over to my direction, even though, you know, it can't see me because it didn't have a head, and it ran.
The figure ran 30 feet right up to the driver's side window, which was wide open. Zeke was in such shock that he didn't think to press the gas and leave. He threw his arms up to block his face.
And this figure just reached into the car with his hands and tried to grab me, right? And right when I saw his hands wrapping around me, he evaporated into thin air. So it looked really aggressive, though. It didn't seem friendly at all, but it seemed really angry that I was looking at it. And that shook me up for a couple weeks. I didn't talk about it till after like a year later, because I thought people would think I was crazy, because that was the most upfront and close that I ever gotten to a spirit.
So what was this headless figure that Zeke encountered?
I thought it was maybe somebody that had gotten into an accident in that particular area. Right on that corner, there's a bar that caught fire, and it catches fire every 5 years. It's no longer there. They just stopped building it, but every 5 years it would catch fire. And I think one particular patch of 5 years, it caught fire and it killed a bunch of people. This was dating back like 15 years ago. So I'm wondering if it has anything to do with that. Because I never saw a spirit on the street like that.
After hearing Zeke's story, it reminded me of the legend of Zach Ford, an urban legend I told in the very first episode of this podcast. In that story, Zach Ford was wasted one night when he passed out on the train tracks and was decapitated by a train. In the Philippines, there's also been numerous sightings of headless priests, and of course, the Dullahan in Ireland, of which the legend of Sleepy Hollow was based. Why do there seem to be so many headless ghosts? Well, taking into consideration the theory that consciousness continues for a few minutes after being beheaded, and that spirits become earthbound if they are unaware of their death, it makes sense that those who are decapitated would continue wandering the earth. So, what did this particular headless ghost want from Zeke?
I think he probably wanted help. I think when the ghost noticed that somebody could see it, it's like, oh, maybe I should interact with this person. Because I believe spirits, some of them don't want to be seen, and then some of them do. And I think this one did, but didn't know how to react. But it felt like a bad spirit. I felt a lot of negativity for that whole week.
Feeling very heavy after a spirit encounter is not unusual. When this particular spirit reached out to grab Zeke, it may have drained him of his energy. But Zeke was already in an unhealthy mental place before this encounter. It was around this time that paranormal experiences were happening frequently for him.
No, I was kind of lost back then. So I think negative energy, I was giving it off, and I think things were attracted to it.
Like the time when he was left alone in his apartment while his wife was out of town for a week.
And I remember this one night I was watching La Bamba. I could watch that movie all the time. So I remember laying on the floor, resting my head against the couch. And I remember watching it, and I drifted off. But during that time, I left all the lights on, and I left the movie blasting on. And I guess I was pretty tired, and I fell asleep. And it was about 4 a.m. Like my eyes, they just pop open, and I'm wondering, oh man, did I just fall asleep? And it dawned on me that all the lights were off. Everything was off. And I thought maybe there was a power outage or something, because I don't remember turning off the lights. I don't remember turning off anything. So I kind of like shift around, about to get up, but I see these small children that were sitting in front of the TV.
A little boy and a little girl.
So my legs were stretched out right next to them, because I was on the floor and laying my head against the couch, feet stretched out. And they're just sitting there and they're watching nothing. The TV's black, it's blank. And I get freaked out. So my body kind of like shakes, right? So the little boy turns around and he looks at me. He looks at me with his little eyes. And again, these two small children, all I could see is the outline. They were see-through, but I could tell their facial features. But the little girl didn't turn back. She didn't turn back. She was afraid. But the little boy looked right into my eyes. And the little girl just grabbed his hand, picked him up, and they both ran out the door. And I was in shock. I was freaked out, but I didn't know what to do.
Zeke thought about leaving the apartment to head to his parents' home. But after thinking about what had happened, he felt that the children he saw were just as scared of him as he was of them. So maybe there was nothing to worry about.
So I went back to sleep. I got up a little bit just to shift around, and then I just laid back down on the floor, kind of forced myself to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, everything was on. All the lights were on. The TV was on. The DVD menu of La Bamba was on. I think I was, it's going to sound stupid. I think I was actually in a different type of realm. Maybe I was a ghost in their world, and they saw me and I freaked them out because they didn't know how to react to me.
Maybe Zeke somehow transported into another realm. But the fact that the little boy looked directly into his eyes might suggest something else.
I've heard stories where, if a spirit looks you directly in the eye, that's a bad sign. Because usually spirits, they try to avoid all that unless it's a demon. But I doubt there'd be any type of demon children. Well, I would hope not. I haven't heard of any.
Nefarious entities are actually notorious for impersonating little children to trick you into thinking that they are harmless, which makes me wonder, what exactly was in Zeke's apartment? Nowadays, Zeke doesn't have these experiences quite as often, and he believes it's because he's in a much better mental state now. This is a really important link that not enough people make. Negative entities seek out those who are stressed, irritable, angry. So if you're able to, protect yourself with supportive friends and family. Seek out a therapist. Find the source of what's bringing you down and take active steps to get out of that state of mind as best you can. Zeke was a perfect target, not only because of his mental health, but because of what he had inherited.
I believe I inherited that gift from my mother, and she wasn't afraid of it, but she believes that she believes we shouldn't talk about it. She believes that it gives the spirits a little bit more power because you acknowledge that they're there. You give them more energy. So you're wasting your energy, and they kind of drain that from you.
As someone who does nothing but talk about spirits, maybe I should be more careful. Check out Zeke's band, Frantic Romantic. Links are in the show notes and at storieswithsapphire.com.